G'day, that's Slot Car Guy here, and welcome back to another slot car review. We've gone Ferrari with this beautiful Ferrari GT 330. It's part of the SCX vintage range, and it's from Simon Slot Cars. So let's get into it. Full unboxing, full teardown, and of course, a lap around my track. So welcome back to another slot car review, and a massive thank you to Simon Slot Cars, who I did purchase this from, because I think this is a really cool, unique item, and it is my first Ferrari that I'm showing off on the channel. And of course, it's the Ferrari GT 330, and it's part of the SCX vintage range. But what makes this so special? This car was released in '99, this model, and it was a reissue of a car that they issued in 1969. SCX released that car in 1969, which I think that's pretty damn cool. So I believe the way they made it was the same as how they did it in 1969. This is limited. There's 3,000 of these. I have got number 2205. It is a high number, but it's still one of the 3,000. So I'm very happy with that. So let's dive in. We'll do a full unboxing, have a quick look at the box. There's not much in it, and of course into a teardown, and then this old girl will go around my track and see what kind of lap time, if any, I can get. So before we take a close look at the beautiful Ferrari, let's have a look at the box that it comes in, because there's some information on here and also some design cues that I really do like. And the first part is this base that it's sitting on. It is angled, it's cut on an angle, as you can see, but I do love the black with the grey Ferrari writing. I think that looks really cool, and of course it's been held down by a screw, which keeps it nice and safe on the base. But all the information about your collector's number and the reproduction of this car is on the back of this box. So that little white square in the middle is my number, which is 2205, and one of these columns is in English, telling you that this was reproduced in 1999 from a car that they produced in 1969. So very, very cool. I think that's a great little idea. Should we see that come back? Of course, today's technology slot cars will look good remade back in the old days, but here we go. Now this is going to look quite old on the eye because it is a very basic slot car, but I think they've done a pretty good job replicating it. Now let's start with the tyres. Big chunky monkey tyres front and rear, but I do love the chrome rims with the center spinny caps, and I'll take a closer look at those. I think that looks really, really cool. Now of course it's a plastic shell with a couple of parts that they've put on. Look, it's old school, it's not up to today's standards, but I still think that's what gives this thing the look. I reckon it looks really cool, and I think the older stuff has got a bit of a charm to it. Let's start around to the rear. Nice bit of silver grilling at the back here with the back lights. Now this doesn't have active lights, and you'll see why in the teardown. Into the cockpit, I'll turn it up and have a quick look. We've got a flooded cockpit, so it's all black up to his armpits, and of course he's got a red helmet on. And you can just see the steering wheel. I think that's part of the flooded cockpit. You can just see the steering wheel in there. Very minimalistic, but again, this is a reissue of an older car. Around to the front, nice big air scoop, so we've got some active aero happening, but looks really cool. But the lines are still pretty good. The arches are really, really well done. And of course, you can tell this is a Ferrari from a mile away, not just because of the color, but the shape is done really well. Onto the bonnet, I'll flip it up and around. And there should be an air intake or reverse air intake on the bonnet, but of course it's just solid plastic, no cutouts. But what I do like, and we'll take a look at number one, it's got the Ferrari logo right in the middle of that sticker, or decal, whatever it may be. That looks really, really cool. Around to the driver's side, exactly the same as the passenger side, or the passenger side of the car. And of course we've got some P stickers or decals, and then at the rear we've got the nice big number one, but a nice little touch. They have got the rear grille that covers the engine. That's got, is that being cut out? I'll have a quick look. I don't think it has, no. So that's just a bit of a cheese grater grille at the back, which where the motor would be. But I do like this pod that's been placed on top and obviously glued in place. So I think they've done a pretty good job. But a really cool thing is on the tyres, they've actually got the size, I think, I could read it before, but it's got SCX branding and it's got some numbers written on it, so it might be hard to see, but that would have looked nice if it was painted white, which probably doesn't replicate the original car, but would have looked pretty cool. So let's dive into the teardown. Let's see what makes this thing go, and of course, let's see if we can get this thing going around my track. So I've completed the teardown, and I think I have a record for this channel. It took 5 screws to get this thing apart, which I'm not that concerned because I won't be racing this every day, but whoa, 5 screws, I think that is a record. Let's move the chassis first and have a quick look at the shell. And of course, there is no active lights. There's not much room going on in here. Of course, you can put some little LEDs in there. This will look great with lights, but being a vintage collectible remake, I probably wouldn't be touching it. But as you can see, we've come a long way when it comes to shells. Very minimalistic. It's this one big red piece of plastic. Now let's talk about this chassis. Again, one big red bathtub, one piece chassis, but it's got a couple of cool little design cues on it. Let's start at the front where the guide is, this little arm that's connected to the chassis. It's got a flathead screw, which is gold, going straight through the center, which that holds your guide in place. Now, while we're talking about the guide, I'll have a quick look at that. It's a unique kind of guide. You do see this on some SCX cars. And of course, it's a split guide, little guide, let's call that a needle at the front with a gap, and then the rest of the guide follows at the rear. So quite a unique guide. Let's flip back over. Let's talk about this motor. Of course, inline, very, very unique looking motor. This is an RX4 16.4 thousand RPM running at 12 volt. And of course, my track runs 14 volts, so this motor should love that extra bit of punch. Moving down to the pinion and spur gear, we've got a 9-tooth pinion, and from what I can count, a 27-tooth spur gear. And of course, it is a one-piece chassis, so not much going on when it comes to setup. But let's flip it upside down. There is no magnets that I can see on this car, but take a look at the underneath of this bathtub chassis. One big red piece of plastic. I love it. It's got that vintage flair, and of course, I love all old school cars on this channel, but showing this compared to a new car, it's this chalk and cheese. So let's see if I can get this thing around my track. I have sanded the tires slightly because it is the old school treaded tires, which they ain't the best performers on my track. I have given it a slight test run. I'm not hopeful, but let's see if I can get a lap time out and what time that lap is. So let's get the old Ferrari around my track. So how did SCX Vintage Ferrari GT 330 perform around my track? Well, this thing unfortunately isn't really a race car. It's more of a collector's, well, it is a collector's edition. And I got a 2871, which we're not breaking any records, but I'm happy I got a lap out of it. And it did take a lot of effort to get this car around my track. Part of the problem is the tires and the braid. The tires are no good. I have sanded them as good as I can without losing that treaded lining on it. I didn't want to go to slicks. And of course, the braid just didn't want to hold shape. But I did play with it and try and get laps, but that's what I got out of this car. Do I recommend the SCX Vintage range? If you see one, grab one. There are only 3,000 of them. Don't expect it to be a race car, but if you are a collector like I am, perfect car for your collection. It looks good, displays well. You can 3D scan it, I guess, if you've got the technology, and make some resin models of this and have a crash and bash, or just replicate it yourself, then put up in your hop-ups, your axles, your motors. But I would leave this as is, and this is going on my shelf, and I'll be happily looking at it, maybe bring it out now and then for a test run, but I'm very happy with it. So if you're a collector, big tick. But a massive thank you to Simon Slot Cars. I did purchase it from him. He has got some great stuff from time to time, so check him out. And of course, like and subscribe if you can. We're almost at 2,000 subs. 1,000 blew me away. 2,000 is just a mind spin, so I appreciate you guys and the support and sharing the videos. Hit the comments. Did I make any mistakes? Of course I did. Is there any information that you can provide about this car, any other SCX vintage cars in the range that you recommend? My comments are always full of information that I don't know, and I think that's great. So please, if you've got any info, hit the comments. But as always, be safe, take care, ciao.